I was about 13 hours into Pokemon Legends Arceus, having just quelled the frenzied noble Pokemon Arcanine, when I took to Twitter to say, the more I play Pokemon Legends Arceus, the more I want it to end. Now that's a pretty incendiary statement, and a pretty obvious response followed. Well, turning it off would cause it to end, surely. Yeah. I got ratioed by a mutual. I'm not mad about it. I've said in the past that there's no shame in stopping a game you either don't like or don't think is good. I don't need to complete a game in order to make a video on it. Due diligence is in the eye of the beholder, and I have flushed away more money on bad games than I'd ever care to see laid out in receipts before me, so it isn't really a value thing. So why did I play through this game to the end? I don't know, there was something strangely compelling about it. I felt like I had to see it through to the end. And the nonsense collection of words that is to follow is my attempt to figure it all out. Pokemon, as a franchise, has always been what I would call risk-averse. It stumbled onto a workable, reliable formula in the late 90s, and it's stuck with it through to today. Generation 9 is right around the corner, and it's probably going to be similar to Generations 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. You get the idea. Although, this new region is based on Spain, which is great, because culture. Now, the series has made quality of life improvements to the formula over the years, but it still plays essentially the same. And I would understand if some people would say that it's grown stale. I wouldn't argue with somebody if they've stepped away from the franchise for that very reason. But with that said, the Pokemon Company does understand the need for the occasional shot to the arm, and they release spin-off games to keep the series fresh. All sorts of snaps and stadiums and tournaments and mystery dungeons. Often these spin-offs are meant to be similar to popular games in different genres, and with most open-world games these days being compared to Breath of the Wild, and anything that's more challenging than chewing gum being compared to Dark Souls, it would make sense that Pokemon would release a game that's nothing like either of those two. What Pokemon Legends Arceus is an Isekai'd. A modern-day child is sent from their regular modern-day life in symbiosis with Pokemon to a feudal world where Pokemon are considered scary monsters that people haven't figured out how to completely coexist with yet. If you want to think of Pokemon as a series as Baby's first JRPG, then it stands to reason that this is Baby's first Isekai. As such, the player character doesn't get sent to the feudal world mid-spank, courtesy of an oncoming Truck-chan. Kya. Immediately, the player character, whom I named Curtains because his death is imminent, is treated with suspicion because he's wearing modern-day clothes as opposed to the rags of burlap common amongst the feudals. He's also told that if he's not careful, he will die, which is why I assume the protagonist of this game was aged up to be 15 years old, because telling the usual 10-year-olds that act as Pokemon Pro tags that death will find them is just not as kosher. I mean, you're 15 in a feudal world, you're practically middle-aged, now get out there and be somebody. You're discovered by the Galaxy team. They're also new to the land of Hisui, and they're trying to establish their footprint in the region, and they've no qualms conscripting your lily ass into doing their bidding. They're oddly militaristic, suspicious of outsiders, and are run by an IBLP weirdo, but they make kick-ass potato mochi, so we're gonna ride this one out. Now, astute Pokemon enjoyers have probably realized something. Team Galactic are the villains of Diamond and Pearl, and Hisui is just the past version of Sinnoh, and that Commander Kamado guy sure does look like Cyrus, who is the leader of Team Galactic. Are they the baddies? Well, I don't know. The colonizers looking to dominate the local wildlife, fauna, and other indigenous tribes of the area? I don't know how they could be seen as anything but sinister. From there, you're given your basic objectives. There is, of course, the catch-em-all aspect that has been a mainstay of the series since its inception. There are different elemental-coated lands of Hisui that you can visit, filled to bursting with different types of Pokemon that you can either catch, battle, or throw shit at. Doing so will fill out your Pokedex, but since the people of this land are just learning about Pokemon for the first time, there's more objectives that you can complete to further fill out the dex. After all, catching just one Pokemon isn't enough to give you an entire species worth of zoological information. There's much to be learned from defeating a certain number of them, defeating them in certain ways, or watching them perform specific moves. Now, of course, if you don't want to watch Buizel use Water Pulse 10 times, you can always just catch 12 of them, and that's basically the same thing. And filling out your Pokedex will increase your standing with Team Galaxy. Excuse me, that was a slip of the tongue. Completely unrelated, but I do think it's very interesting that the name of the group you're a part of is called the Survey Corps? Neinfischender Jaeger? When you increase your rank, you'll get more money for catching Pokemon, the more powerful ones will start to obey you, and you'll get access to better equipment and recipes for crafting, and oh fucking boy, crafting. I hate crafting systems. There is nothing that kills my immersion in a game more than smashing two unrelated items together to forge complex machinery. Unless a game is completely designed around its crafting system, a la Minecraft, it never really works for me, and since this is, of course, baby's first crafting system, combine rock and acorn, get Pokeball. Naturally. There's also inventory management, which is another video game mechanic that I despise, because I'm a big lazy bitch. Your shitty little satchel can only hold so much, but don't you worry, because there's one guy on the continent who you can pay thousands of exponential Pokedollars to increase it one slot at a time. Awesome. Not only are the Galaxy team authoritarians, but they're also hyper-capitalists. But that is just one of the game's objectives. The Galaxy team has also charged you with quelling the frenzied noble Pokemon. They're too feudal for gym leaders, but they're still somewhat of a boss you have to fight in order to test your abilities to throw shit and do turn-based Pokemon battles. There are large Pokemon out there that will attack you, and you'll have to dodge their moves so telegraphed they might as well be in CQD. Doing so will grant you the opening to hit them with calming bombs made of their favorite foods that will calm them down. And I can attest to this. If you 12-6 curve infinite sacks of my favorite food at my forehead, I'd be in a wondrous mood afterwards. And that's the deal. You go to the different regions of Hisui, you calm the noble Pokemon, and then you move on to the next, catching other Pokemon along the way, and doing side content. And that side content, oh, it sure is something else. I mean that literally. It's something else. And that's as charitable as I'm willing to be. The side quests in this game are, in a word, terrible. They don't offer anything in terms of plot or character or world building. Instead, what they offer is busy work. Do you feel like the main quest is moving a little too quickly? Well, how about this? How about you go to one side of the village and give a schmuck over there some berries. And when you're done with that, you can give a different schmuck on the other side of the village a few different kinds of berries. Wow. Now, I am a firm believer in the idea that quests in video games should have substance. If you're going to go through the trouble of putting it in the game, it needs to have a reason to be there. Hot takes only on this channel. Now, of course, if you want to put in a trophy or an achievement based around collecting oodles of stuff, by all means. But, I don't know, quests have to be quests. They should feel like they were designed for the world to help it feel like you're in a world. Like, there's one girl who asks you to find 120 wisps at night for shits and gigs, and that's like Flags and Assassin's Creed levels of bad. And this hasn't really been a problem in the mainline Pokemon games because they tend to be pretty linear, so it doesn't really come up. But in an open world game like this, this is an open world, pseudo open world game like this, you need to have tighter design so that it doesn't feel empty. And that's really how I felt about Pokemon Legends Arceus. It felt empty, hollow, half-baked, and like baby's first attempt at a world full of things to find and places to go. So why did I play it through to the end? I don't know. I was interested in the early parts of the game because I thought it was keeping me on my toes, because I felt the need to switch out my Pokemon more frequently. Like, in most Pokemon games, I've got my team of 6 set by gym number 2, and I stick with it through to the end, barring extreme circumstances. In this, up until the final Noble, I was still switching out guys. The result of this was having a more eclectic team than I normally do. Like, I had Typhlosion, of course, because he's the starter, and I loved his Hisui design. I had Tentacruel. I do not care for Tentacruel. It scared me as a child. Like, that Tentacruel Kaiju episode of the anime where it destroys a building, that scarred me.
It's too late, horsey!
I had, who else I have? I had a Honchkrow, I had a Roselia. I had to make a choice. Was I going to evolve Murkrow or was I going to evolve Roselia? Because I only had the currency to purchase one of the evolutionary stones, and I was not going to spend the extra time digging for treasure or finding lost satchels. Like, I'm sorry, other explorers of Hisui. You don't have your survival gear anymore, so I guess you're gonna die. And it's my fault. Because I'm a big lazy bitch. Who else did I have? I had Luxray, who sucks, but there are so few electric Pokemon in the game, I kind of had no choice. Like, honestly, I think there might only be 5. Like, there's the Shinx line, there's the Pikachu line, the Electabuzz line, Voltorb and Electrode were there, and you can evolve Eevee into a Jolteon. That's it, I think. I think that is honestly it. Oh yeah, and I also had a Garchomp. He was a complete monster. He destroyed everything in his path. He saved my bacon multiple times. I loved him. I can have a cheap Garchomp too, Cynthia. And that was my team at the end of the game, at least until the final boss fight, where it forces me to switch someone out for a legendary. Like, the game forced me to put a legendary in the party. The metagame will not approve of that. And you would think that I would have swapped out Roselia, right? Because it's clearly the worst one on the team, but it doesn't matter. Because you don't fight the final boss, you throw stuff at it. And you would think you would be throwing stuff at Arceus, right? You know, the title Pokemon of the game, right there, written in that fancy paint font. You'd think you'd fight Arceus, right? No. As the late Gilbert Gottfried once said, you fool. You don't fight Arceus. You fight a version of Palkia that looks kind of like Arceus. And I assume this switches to Dialga based on who you get to join you for the final lake trials, where you deal with those lame-ass lake Pokemon, Uxie, Meesprit, and Azelf. Those trials were terrible, by the way. And again, I'll say lame. Lame as fuck. And you might be wondering, why did I pick Adamant to come with me and not Irida? Look at this man. Look at him. He is a mess. He is not put together in any sense, and he needed guidance. But why, perhaps the more important why, did I finish this game that I clearly did not care for? I don't know. I guess I liked that it took less than 24 hours to beat as a whole. I did enjoy the real-time catching mechanics where Pokeballs were still viable in the later part of the game. I liked the new designs for some of the Pokemon, and I even liked the designs for some of the characters. There were a couple of moments where I pointed at my screen and I went, I recognize that, and those moments were nice. But I felt the story was just so unengaging. You know, even though I liked some of the designs, the characters were just pretty flat. Like, even Adamant, whom I love, he's wonderful. But he might as well have been a cardboard standee. I wish this world felt more inhabited, like more landmarks, more interesting things to see and to find, experiences, so to speak. I hate saying it, but I wish it looked better. Aesthetic matters more to me than graphical fidelity, but I do have some standards, and this is subpar, even for Pokemon. Like, Pokemon as a franchise, when it comes to money, it rakes all night, day, year. Randy. And there is no reason that it should look this blandy. Well, that's not true. There is a reason, and that reason is crunch. And the fact that the Pokemon Company releases these games way too frequently. Like, if they actually took some time off, they would probably look a lot better, and then maybe we could get some animations. I don't know. Like, there's 2 parts, actually, where Commander Komodo judo throws both you and this bisexual mess man, and it cuts to black both times, because, we can't animate that. Can't do it. And that is, it's the theme of the day. It's lame. It's lame, guys. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's Pokemon, so it's Pokemon. That's why I finished it. Because it's Pokemon. And I love Pokemon. Can't wait for Scarlet and Violet. It's probably going to be ass, but I'm still going to buy it. Hook, line, and sucker.